Use the word woman instead of words like whore, slut, harlot, or seductress. Use sexually harassed, assaulted, or raped instead of ravished. Use the word rape instead of forcible rape, and say sex worker instead of hooker. These are some of the suggestions in the Handbook on Combating Gender Stereotypes released by the Supreme Court on Wednesday. This is a very fresh step taken by the Supreme Court to offer guidance to judges and the legal community as a whole on how to avoid using harmful gender stereotypes, particularly those about women in judicial decision making and writing. Now, how does this handbook offer this guidance? First, it explains what the stereotypes are and then helps judges avoid such stereotypes by identifying language that promotes them. It then lists down such stereotypes and offers alternative words and phrases. You can see the list on your screens right now. So, for instance, it says that instead of adulteress, the alternative preferred phrase should be woman who has engaged in sexual relations outside of marriage, and instead of bastard, the preferred phrase should be non-marital child or a child whose parents were not married. Then it suggests that instead of biological sex, biological male, biological female, the phrase sex assigned at birth should be used. And instead of born a girl or a boy, the phrase assigned female or male at birth should be used. Similarly, it suggests usage of child who has been trafficked instead of child prostitute, and woman with whom a man has had romantic or sexual relations outside of marriage instead of concubine or keep must be used. The handbook further objects to the use of the word faggot and suggests that the word should accurately describe the individual's sexual orientation. For example, homosexual or bisexual should be used. The handbook also comments on whether the word survivor should be used or victim and explains, and I quote, an individual who has been affected by sexual violence may identify themselves as either a survivor or a victim. Both terms are applicable unless the individual has expressed a preference, in which case the individual's preference should be respected, unquote. The handbook goes into detail about understanding what stereotypes exactly are, how they function, and their impact on judicial decision making. It in fact asserts that as guarantors of the dignity and privacy of all individuals, members of the judiciary have a unique duty not only to avoid perpetuating these stereotypes, but also to challenge and rebut such anachronistic conceptions. Since it is addressing gender stereotypes, the handbook also explains what it means when it says gender. It explains that gender identity is not limited to a binary like girl or woman and boy or man, and rather exists on a spectrum and can evolve over time. It asserts that gender is a social construct and includes the norms, behaviors, and roles associated with a particular gender identity. These are, in fact, just to let you know, some assertions that we'd also heard during the arguments in the marriage equality case pending in the Supreme Court currently. Now, the handbook doesn't stop there. It goes on to list different types of gender stereotypes, and then it busts these stereotypes. This includes stereotypes like women are overly emotional, illogical, and cannot take decisions. All women are physically weaker than men. All women want to have children. Women should do all the household chores, and women who are also mothers are less competent in the office because they are distracted by childcare. So it lists down these stereotypes and then on the other side lists down the truth or busts these stereotypes. You can see this table on your screens as well. In fact, it also gives examples of such stereotypes actually featuring in court judgments. For example, it cited a 2017 Kerala High Court judgment which said, and I quote, a girl aged 24 years is weak and vulnerable, capable of being exploited in many ways, unquote. It refers to another Orissa High Court judgment passed in 1985. This judgment said, and I quote again, both these witnesses, however, are ignorant and illiterate women belonging to scheduled tribe, and it is extremely doubtful if they could speak of age with precision, unquote. Now, while addressing stereotypes concerning sex and sexual violence, the handbook says that assumptions are often made about a woman's character based on her expressive choices, like, for example, the clothes she wears and her sexual history. It then says that these assumptions may also impact how her actions and statements are assessed in judicial proceedings, which often happens. However, it asserts, and I quote again, assumptions based on a woman's character or the clothes she wears diminish the importance of consent in sexual relationships as well as the agency and personhood of women, unquote. Once again, it provides another illustrative list of stereotypes that are often applied to men and women in the context of sexual violence and sex, and explains why such assumptions are wrong. For example, it looks into the stereotype that women who dress in clothes that are not considered to be traditional want to engage in sexual relations with men. In response, the handbook says that the clothing or attire of a woman neither indicates that she wishes to engage in sexual relations, nor is it an invitation to touch her. Similarly, it addresses stereotypes like men are unable to control their sexual desires, it is not possible for a man to rape a sex worker, able bodied men do not engage in sexual relations with women with disabilities, rape is a crime which taints the honor of the survivor, victim, or her family. If the rapist marries the survivor or victim, her honor is restored. These are some of the stereotypes that it lists down. The handbook mentions the stereotypes associated with a woman's response to sexual assault or rape as well, asserting that different people react differently to traumatic events. As for the stereotype that dominant caste men do not engage in sexual relations with women from oppressed castes, the handbook says that dominant caste men have historically used sexual violence as a tool to reinforce and maintain caste hierarchies. The handbook further goes on to list Supreme Court judgments that have categorically rejected several of the stereotypes discussed in the handbook. So, for example, it cites judgments to emphasize on the fact that the testimony of a survivor or victim is inherently credible and that the absence of physical injuries must be evaluated contextually in the facts of a given case. So it asserts that courts should be wary of discrediting the testimony of the survivor or the victim just because there were no physical injuries on her. Thank you so much for watching. That's all I have for you for now. This is Apoorva Mandhani for ThePrint. For more such videos, do subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.